Welcome to Big Daddy Bakes. I'm Big Daddy, and today we're going to be making cinnamon swirl bread. Cinnamon swirl bread has a very rich bread that contains eggs, almost like a challah, but not quite. It's very rich, and then encased in the bread is a swirl of cinnamon sugar that kind of melts into the bread. It is so delicious, and I think you'll love making it. So, let's get to it. I'll show you how to do it. For this recipe, you will need 5½ cups of bread flour, 1/3 cup of water, 1/2 cup of sugar, 1 cup of milk that is at 110 degrees, 2 room temperature eggs, 6 tablespoons of softened butter, 1/2 cup of honey, 2 tablespoons of cinnamon, 2 teaspoons of yeast, and 1½ teaspoons of salt. To make our dough, let's start by adding our water and milk into the bowl of our stand mixer. And then we're going to add the honey. And then I'm going to add our yeast, and I'm going to whisk this all together until combined. And we're going to let this sit for about 10 minutes just to make sure that the yeast is active. You should see some bubbling in it. So this has started bubbling, and I can tell that my yeast is good. So I'm going to start adding the other ingredients. I'm going to add the 2 eggs, I'm going to add the butter, and then I'm going to add 3 cups of the flour, and the salt, and I'm going to let that mix for a little bit. And once I see it kind of coming together or clumping together, then I'll add the rest of the flour. It's important that your eggs are at room temperature because it will just set everything back and it'll take longer to rise. What I do if I don't take my eggs out early enough, you could put it into a bowl with some hot tap water and set the eggs in it for about 5 or 10 minutes, and it will get them up to room temperature. Alright, that's kind of come together somewhat, and I'm just going to add the rest of the flour. And then I'm just going to let this go. This will knead for at least 6 to 8 minutes. If you're doing this by hand, you can just slowly add the flour in the dough and then turn it down on board and knead it for 6 to 8 minutes. What we're looking for is a soft dough, but nice and elastic. You don't want this to be a heavy, firm dough at all. Okay, so our dough has been kneading for about 8 minutes. It's soft, it's elastic, it's just exactly what it should be. So I'm going to take this out of the bowl. It pretty much all stays in the bowl. It's soft, but yet very, very elastic, which is exactly what we want. If it's very stiff, then there's way too much flour in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this into a ball, like so. Doesn't have to be perfect, just get it together. And then I've got a bigger bowl, which I'm going to put that in that has a little oil, about a teaspoon of oil in it. And then I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to let this rise until it's doubled in bulk. So our dough has doubled in volume. I'm going to punch down, and I'm going to take it out of the bowl. And I'm going to divide the dough in half. We're going to make 2 loaves of bread. I'm going to cut that right down the center. I'll put that one away for a moment. I'm going to press it down, and then I'm going to roll it out. Okay, that's about the size and shape I want. Then I'm going to take the cinnamon and the sugar and combine them in a bowl. And then I'm going to take half of this and place on the top. You want to get it to within, about ½ an inch to the end of the bread. You don't want to go past that margin. I think that's almost enough. Maybe one more spoon. Then I'm just going to spread it out. Now, I'm going to turn it like this, and I'm going to jelly roll it up. And as I go up, I'm going to pinch the side down. That's going to hold in the cinnamon sugar. And as I roll it up, I'm just going to continue. And then I get to the end, I'm going to pinch that seam very tightly. You want to make sure that it's very tightly seamed, or it will explode in the oven. I know this from experience. Alright, I'm going to put it in a 9x5 pan, and I'll do the second one. Roll it out. All right. And we're going to repeat this process. I'm going to put the sugar on there. Alright, and I'm going to start in the middle, again at the end, and I'm going to pinch this together. Alright. Alright, so there we go. I'm going to place him in the pan. So I'm going to let this rise for about an hour to an hour and a half until it fills up almost to the top. So here is our dough after it's risen. The loaves don't tend to rise up like some of my other loaves that I had, but they'll rise a bit more in the oven once they're in. So these will need to cook in a 350 oven for about 30 minutes. Here's our bread after it's come out of the oven. We're going to put it in a wire rack and let it cool for at least an hour. You can see that they came out. I didn't have any blowouts, just a really beautiful loaf. Here's our bread after it came out of the oven. It has a very nice spiral of cinnamon in it, and it tastes so good. Oh, and the smell. It just makes your house smell wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us this week. If you like what we do on the channel, please consider subscribing and perhaps sharing with a friend. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.